Welcome back to Title Trinity, the challenge series where I attempt the absurd task of pushing 3 separate paladins, each on a different role, to the 0.1% Mythic Plus title in Season 3 of War Within. For this series, I'm only allowed to get score for a single role on a particular character. I am not allowed to pay for carries for obvious reasons, and I'm not allowed to farm resilient keys that are any more than 1 level above what I've already completed on that character. On screen are the scores for the characters, starting from the end of the last episode. Each of these characters has had their own trials and tribulations, but there has been one thing that has popped up, has been consistent across all of them: time. It turns out that pushing 3 separate characters is quite a time investment, so not only am I battling my own incompetence on these specs, I'm also battling the clock. However, I guess whining about the amount of time that I need to put into a completely self-imposed challenge is not really going to help the cause, so without further ado, let's kick into the Prot Paladin first. Now, in a surprise to nobody, a tank dying in a key is generally rest in peace the key. Similar to last episode, I am still struggling with deaths on Prot Paladin. Like, let's just have a look at this plus 16 Arakara here. Now, we have about 9 minutes left, which I think is plenty of time for this effectively one more pull and then the boss. You can see me getting awfully confused trying to pull this extra pack in, proccing kings because I face my back to the mobs, losing threat to the Ellie Shaman. My Havoc here also just died previously because I couldn't get threat as I entered the pull. This is just something that confused the hell out of me. But if we look at my bars, I have Ardent up, I have Blessing of Ancient Kings there ready to press. I could press Eye of TR. Lots of defensive buttons there. You know, I Word of Glory instead of pressing any of those for some reason. And then my health just goes to 0. This is not good. This is completely avoidable. And I had so many things I could have pressed and I just didn't. But it's not all bad. Like, I am building a little bit of competence with this spec. If we have a look at this clip of this plus 16 streets here, this was out of comms, so I didn't know what to expect in terms of what was going to get pulled at what pace. We went into the music area here, and the Demon Hunter did the thing that most groups would be doing if they're trying to go as fast as possible and pulled every single one of the packs. Now, this would have been fine if I hadn't have pressed all of my defensives earlier and had to panic to try and keep myself alive. Now, in this situation, as opposed to the Ara, I actually did keep my composure. I managed to rotate through what little defensives I had left. I got a lot of assistance from Intertwine, massive Mistweaver moves, big Ring of Peace being dropped to sort of help me out. And we managed to get through what is normally a very difficult pull with very few defensives up. So the ability is sneaking in. I am getting better. However, I think we still need a set of training wheels for the Prot Paladin, which is why in this weekly run that I was doing with some guildies, just a plus 10 to help them out, get their vaults filled, this drop happened, which I think is going to be pretty big for us. Yes! I am happy! That's very good. Now, I know that the Ritual Mud is not the best trinket in the world. In fact, I think I watched a video recently of Yoda memeing on it, saying that, like, we basically don't want to get it. But for an absolute spud like me, this is the sort of assistance that I think I really do need. And because of that, I have actually noticed a fairly big difference in how sturdy I feel in keys. So therefore, with that increased sturdiness, let's have a look at some of the successful runs that have occurred since getting this trinket. First up, we have this 16 halls right here. Now, this was actually a very smooth run. I had some whoopsie moments earlier in the week after the nerfs to the dungeon, mainly around not knowing how to gather some of the pulls after the first boss, but we ran through this pretty smoothly. The only real hiccup that we had for the run was this one right here where the gargoyles pulled as we were going up the stairs. However, even with this, probably burning about 2 minutes off the timer just in the time it takes to actually kill them, we still managed to cruise this in with a decent chunk of time to spare. We also have this plus 16 Dawnbreaker. This is a dungeon that originally in the season actually scared me quite a lot. These Shadow Walkers in here absolutely murder the tank. So to be able to get through this with effectively 0 hiccups is like an awesome thing to have done. One thing that we're going to incorporate with this dungeon in particular is there's a new strategy that's arisen where people are pulling a pack in the intermission as the third boss is flying down to its final area. So I think that will also then just help us save even more time, because it's effectively doing a pull at a time where you ordinarily wouldn't have been doing a pull in the past. Jumping into the 17s, we have ran into a little bit of a problem though. Apparently, my mental fortitude is not really that good, and I have made repeated mistakes in 17s. As of the time of making this video, I have bricked 4 17s, all have been relatively easy ones, mainly because I have just goofed something up. The closest we had was a plus 17 Eco Dome, which was over by a minute and a half. We ran the route that I'm going to show on screen here, which is, I think, objectively quite a safe route. We then tried to transition one later in the week, which I don't have footage of, running a different route, which I corked up in the section just here with the 3 Gloomstalkers, because apparently I don't know how to LOS the Tank Buster properly, and I just got absolutely murdered by them. I am starting to see some chinks in the armor, so therefore I think we do need to be doing a little bit more prop pally practice, even with the improvements and the training wheels coming on with the Ritual Mud Trinket. There's still a little bit of work to be done. But we also had a little bit of weirdness show up. We have a look here. I, at this point of recording, have gotten all 16s bar Priory. But if we open up my achievement tab here, we can see that I have been credited for having resilient 16s. Not entirely sure what's happened here. I think it may be crediting timed keys from the previous season, as I would have completed a plus 19 Priory on my Rep Pally, getting title last season. Not entirely sure. In post-production as well, I've just opened the weekly vault and I still have a resilient 16 key despite still not having timed Priory at a 16. So, bit weird. Not going to complain about it though. But altogether, we end this episode with a Prot Paladin score of 3,358. Still a little bit behind the title cutoff, but it is what it is. We keep grinding, I suppose.
They don't know me, son! Get it! 18! They don't know me, son!
Let's move on to something that is a little more smooth for me to play, the Ret Paladin. Now, Ret is funny. It has been my long-standing main for so long that I'm extremely comfortable playing it. Even if we look at this clip on screen here, it's gotten to the point with Ret Pally that I'm so automatic with the rotation that I'm able to dedicate so much attention to like watching health bars and being able to bop, dispel, sack, do all of these utility-based things, which I think makes people much better Ret Paladin players and just Paladin players in general. The issue is that Ret is kind of undertuned at the moment.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now, I know what you're saying. Haven't the Paladin Discord just had this massive meltdown about tuning and gotten a 5% buff? Yes, and that has helped a little bit, but I've noticed in keys that my damage is generally quite a lot lower than some of the more meta specs are currently. So therefore, we need to do a bit of exploring as to what specs we can actually slot in with Ret Paladin to sort of help it shine. On screen here, we've got the end of a plus 16 Dawnbreaker that I did. This is probably the biggest key that I did on Ret this week. The combination of Marksman Hunter and Frosty Key actually worked quite well. Also, can we just take note, Brewmaster Monk is pumping. So like, that's massive. They're doing like 80% of a DPS's damage, which is just insane. The thing is that I think with Ret Pally's damage profile, it's paddy, but not like insanely paddy. So we kind of need to be finding a combination of specs that are providing a little bit more funnel and priority damage to allow me as the Ret to be able to sort of do the thing that I can do best. But we kept experimenting. I've got a run on screen here with an Outlaw Rogue and a Warrior, which actually went really well. The damage profiles worked out kind of nice in this comp. The Demon Hunter pulled a bit smaller. I don't think it was to work around the comp, but it actually ended up working really well. The low target cap situations obviously made the Warrior and the Outlaw Rogue do a lot more damage, but on top of that, it sort of helped us as well. I think having the extra Hammer of Light means that Rets low target cap damage is actually quite strong. So we moved through this key pretty swiftly. We've also got this comp here for the 16 streets. I think Mage fills that role of like the more funnily style class extremely well. I actually quite liked Demo Warlock in this as well. I know Demo Warlock's not exactly the most popular spec in the world, but they seemed to bring a fairly substantial amount of boss damage, which was really good for this run. The time is a little tight, but we actually had like a big mess up at one point where we full wiped on a boss and were still able to time it. So I think that might just show how free Streets is. All in all, we were pretty comfortably able to tick off quite a few 15s and a couple of 16s this week on Ret Paladin. And therefore, we've managed to end the week with a score of 3,240 for Ret Paladin, which if we compare it to the current title cutoff, we can see that once again, time has beaten us. The cutoff has climbed quicker than we can climb towards it.
Sponge? It's okay. Sponge?
No matter, we will just move on to the Holy Paladin. The Holy Paladin has been the one that's been behind by the largest margin, so therefore we need to kick into some keys. However, the time boss is the thing that killed us the most this week. Here is the most successful run that I had on the Holy Paladin this week. It was a timed plus 15 ARA, went extremely smoothly. Funnily enough, it was actually the first plus 15 ARA that I timed on any of the Paladins, so it was the first time that the Holy Paladin pulled in front of everything else. However, we did run into one problem. I ended up having to put a lot more time into the Ret and the Prot Pally this week. The Holy Pally got neglected a little bit. I actually got to the point where the day before reset, so just before the recording of this video, I didn't even have an entire vault. I had to do a couple of 10s just to get my vault filled. This is where the problem of this challenge is starting to show up. I am fully believing that I am capable of pushing any of these 3 specs to title. However, doing all 3 of them at once is proving to be a big challenge.
Ew, I stepped in shit.
But this is far from me copping out. I set myself a goal and I intend to achieve it. This I envision as being a magnum opus series, the thing that I think most people, even myself, don't think is achievable, and I am going to prove everyone wrong. So let's have a look at the successes for Holy Pally, as limited as they actually were. First up, we had the plus 15 streets. This went kind of awry. We had a full wipe on one of the bosses, but as I said earlier, streets is omega free. So we managed to sneak this one through. I think that the thing that I'm still juggling with Holy Paladin is the management of my healing CDs. Wings is like the most mega easy cooldown to play around. I feel like a Holy Paladin in Wings has got to be the strongest healer in the game, bar none. However, juggling Beacon of Virtue windows is the really tricky part. Dungeons like this, where there's sort of frequent-ish damage coming out, can leave you high and dry if you accidentally send your beacon a tad bit early or a tad bit late. So I think this is really going to come down to practice. We also have this plus 14 Tazavesh Gambit. Now, I was quite successful in this run. These are all just no comms pugs that I found my way into throughout the week. I think this section here is the perfect example of juggling Beacon of Virtue, though. The pops on this healing sphere thingamabob mean that we basically need to be juggling the beacon perfectly. So experience has now taught me that I pop beacon after the first pop, and then I try to pop 2 of the orbs within that window, let it settle for a bit, and then pop again with another beacon. This is just the sort of thing that it feels like I need to be learning the most on Holy Paladin. But there's one more thing that will help. Ellismere's huge brain. So I sat down and I watched that video that I talked about in episode 1 that I didn't understand, to see what I could get from it.
My name is Ellismere, and I'm here to talk about Holy Paladin in Season 3, The War Within. This PT...
And the results were surprising. I understood what he was talking about. And in fact, I actually all of a sudden absorbed a lot of the information, and for the last few keys of the week, felt really comfortable on Holy Pally. It turns out we never want to press Holy Light. We want to spend all of our infusion procs on Flash of Light instead of Judgment, which I was doing wrong. And now all of a sudden these things are starting to make a lot more sense. So therefore, going forward, I am going to be putting a substantial amount more time into Holy Paladin. I want this character to not be lagging behind. I want it to catch up. I want this series to look and feel completely achievable throughout the entirety of it, and not just have one character sneak into title and these other ones lagging behind the entire time. Chasing your tail is not what we're after. We need to get in front of the game and not be behind the game. Therefore, while we are a little bit behind on the Holy Paladin, we are ending this episode with a score of 3,108. Now, we are a good 300 odd points away from the current title cutoff. However, I think the learning that has occurred over this last couple of weeks has just compounded on the earlier learning from the previous episode and is going to let us push even further. So let's summarize. I've popped on screen the scores of each of the Paladins, as well as the title cutoff at the time of recording. The big thing for us moving forward is going to be time. We are battling time, and we are battling just the pure amount of effort that needs to go into these three characters. In saying that, I am extremely motivated. We are going to make this happen. I am going to make myself the Paladin guy. Maybe the second Paladin guy. I feel like Alismir is already the Paladin guy. I want to be the second Paladin guy. So, we keep grinding. We are going to be working out the kinks on the Prot Paladin, trying to push into those title range keys, as opposed to just being like one level behind them, as we are at the moment. Basically just playing Ret more. We're going to play Ret and find comps that work with it and try and keep it up to par with the Prot Paladin. And then Holy, still going to be a work in progress. It is a difficult spec. I've never really played it before. I've never healed at an extremely high level of Mythic Plus either. Very big learning curve, but I'll tell you what, I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I have also heard that subscribing to my YouTube channel will give me more survivability on Prot, so go on, show me some love, nerd. I'll give you a virtual smooch.
Ugh. Brother, ugh.
That's all from me today, though. If you want to come watch me live on Twitch as I attempt this challenge, I'll pop the pin, the thing in above my head. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Until next time, gamers, take care.